Welcome back. Well, more and more claims again over the last couple of weeks about Metro police officers, particularly in Tshwane, but some other cases in other cities, extorting money from people in the form of bribes, stopping people in their cars and forcing them to give them cash. In some cases, it's claimed, some people have even been kidnapped. Sonja Carstens is from the Motor Industry Staff Association. Sonja, good afternoon to you. You've seen cases like this. What kind of claims are you making here?
Yes, good afternoon, Stephen. Thank you so much for having us. We've had a recent incident where a member was involved in one of these cases, where he was stopped late at night on the N1 on the Atterbury off-ramp in Pretoria, and then the Metro Police basically told him, "Did you have a glass of wine?" He said, "Well, I had half a glass of wine." They said, "Well, we're going to test you now, and if you are over the limit, we will arrest you, or else you need to pay a fine at the side of the road." This fine was an amount of 6,000 rand.
Well, I mean, that's clearly not the correct procedure. As I understand the procedure, if you test positive on the breathalyzer, you're supposed to go to the district surgeon for a blood test.
Well, they refused to use the breathalyzer, threatening to arrest him. So obviously, if you've never been exposed to a situation like this, what will you do? And this is the worst part of the situation, what's happening out there on the road. People don't know what's their right, so instead of demanding to have the breathalyzer, which is, according to the police, not accurate in any case, they are threatened that they're going to be arrested, that they will only appear after 48 hours in court, and then they pay a so-called fine, but it's a bank transfer into a cell phone account or to a cell phone number of one of the Tshwane Metro Police officers.
What kind of action do you think needs to be taken here? I understand even the Tshwane Mayor, Celia Brink, has written a letter to the people who run the Metro Police in Tshwane.
Well, in the letter and the social media video of Celia Brink, he basically said that you as motorists have got the right to demand that they must identify themselves, the Tshwane Metro Police officials. You can take photographs of them and you can make a video at the scene. But that will only aggravate the situation even more. So the advice we've got after we asked several attorneys on behalf of our members, what should a motorist do? The advice was that you should indicate to them that you are acknowledge them, put on your hazards, but drive slowly to the nearest police station so that you can have witnesses present if they confront you.
It's very scary actually, and particularly I would suggest for women driving on their own, perhaps, you're stopped maybe by a group of men, you just don't know what to do. It's got to be a very scary thing for a lot of people.
Indeed, Stephen. The normal legal test is what will the reasonable man do. But the reasonable man will not expect that we have corrupt Tshwane Metro Police officials. And it's not limited to Tshwane Metro Police only. We've got a very similar situation in Ekurhuleni, very similar in Johannesburg. And in the Western Cape, it's police officials that have been arrested for alleged kidnapping of civilians. So it's all over the show. But if you are arrested, or if you are in a roadblock, the reasonable person will assume that you have normal law authorities that's there to protect you. But this is the situation where they are threatening you and where you are in so much anxiety and panic, you don't know what to do, and you cannot accept that they will protect you. So when you go to the police, in this case, the MISA member did, he was shown away by the police who said, "But do you know the suspect? Who's the suspect?" Some Metro Police official on the side of the road. Well, then we can't open up a case. And that's the other side of the flip coin. That's also a problem. Is when you go to the police, they don't open up dockets because they say you don't know who's the suspect.
Sonja, how do you think the situation's been created? And it's not just in Tshwane, as I mentioned. You mentioned Cape Town, happens in other places. Why do you think it's happening so much now? I mean, clearly police officers, people think, I'm wearing a uniform, I can get away with anything.
I think it's a situation of they think they are above the law. We have a bizarre situation in our country where we've had state capture for almost a decade, more than a decade, and we don't see justice to be done. When we have criminal cases, they take extensive time to be finalized. So it's a question of the National Prosecuting Authority is not working the way they should. The South African Police Service are not working the way they should. Crime intelligence is basically non-existent. So we've got a holistic problem in South Africa in a criminal justice system, and that's not being addressed. And that's why we're seeing more and more of these cases. Stephen, you would recall back in the 2010, there was a very tragic incident where one of the Blue Ball rugby players, Piers Roo, were charged with culpable homicide after he killed one of the Tshwane Metro Police officers who bribed him and kidnapped him basically and held him to ransom until they transferred money out of his bank account. And still, 13 years later, we are still struggling with this problem.
Sonja Carstens, thank you very much indeed from the Motor Industry Association. Such a big problem for so many people.